Britain's annual Festival of Remembrance brought together the royal family and national leaders in London. 12-year-old attended the moving tribute at the Royal Albert Hall alongside King Charles.
Prince Louis, with her youngest child, seen sporting the biggest smile and excitedly waving to the crowd for the entire celebration.
What happens when a world-renowned pianist humiliates a 7-year-old prince in front of an audience, dismissing him as nothing more than a playful distraction? What happens when that same child, underestimated and overlooked, returns weeks later to a stage filled with musical legends and leaves them completely speechless? This is not a fairy tale, and it is not fiction. This is the story of Prince Louis of Wales, the boy known for cheeky grins and stolen chocolates, who transformed ridicule into triumph. Behind palace walls, away from cameras and headlines, something extraordinary was unfolding. Secret practice sessions, a grandmother's handwritten sheet music, and one performance that would silence even the harshest critics. Tonight, you will witness how humility can hide genius, and how a child, dismissed as too small to matter, turned a moment of cruelty into a lesson no one would ever forget. The moment the world shifted, Windsor Castle had witnessed centuries of history, yet on this afternoon, something subtle and profound was about to unfold within its stone walls. The day promised routine, a carefully orchestrated gathering of patrons and dignitaries, where tea was sipped, art admired, and polite conversations exchanged. Among the guests was a pianist whose reputation thundered across concert halls worldwide. Known for technical brilliance and a merciless standard of excellence, he viewed music as a fortress too tall for most to scale. Children to him were either charming distractions or irritating interruptions, incapable of grasping the rigor he demanded. Prince Louis, 7 years old, had been ushered into the drawing room in the manner royal children often were, briefly, politely, visible enough to be admired, invisible enough to be returned to the proper sphere of childhood. The public knew him for mischief, snatching chocolates, making faces on balconies, breaking the carefully choreographed order of royal appearances.
7-year-old Prince Louis breaking protocol and snatching some chocolates given to his father.
To outsiders, he was amusement, unpredictable and charming, a reminder that royalty could be human. But no one considered why his energy roiled beneath the surface, or what he might be feeling in moments unseen by cameras. The drawing room itself was magnificent in the oppressive way only centuries-old royal spaces can be. Soaring ceilings, cold autumn light streaming through tall windows, and portraits of ancestors whose painted eyes followed every movement. Louis hated rooms like this. They demanded stillness his body could not naturally provide, a composure that felt like wearing clothes 3 sizes too small. William spoke with patrons nearby, Catherine casting the particular glance mothers reserve for children overwhelmed by worlds they don't yet understand. Louis shifted his weight from one foot to the other, fingers twisting together in a nervous rhythm only he could feel. The pianist's eyes found him immediately, sharp and calculating. The child's discomfort was, in that moment, a source of amusement, a tiny ripple in the otherwise controlled waters of the room. With a thin smile, he gestured to the grand piano tucked in the corner, its polished surface gleaming under the chandelier light. Then came the joke. Small hands, children who thought they could play, laughter at the expense of the boy who couldn't yet defend himself. The room responded with polite chuckles exactly as he expected, and then the invitation came, delivered with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Why don't we hear something? Go on, young prince. Show us what you've got." Playful, encouraging, yet Louis sensed the trap, the weight of expectation pressing on his small shoulders. He looked at his parents, silently pleading, but no one moved in time. The moment stretched, becoming larger than a casual request, a judgment passed on him by those convinced of his inadequacy. Louis tried to protest, but the pianist waved him off, insisting it was just a piano, just a few notes. Catherine's voice intervened softly, telling him he didn't have to if he didn't want to. The pianist, unconcerned, added one final barb. Children were better suited to waving than playing. The polite laughter that followed landed on Louis like stones, searing and public. He didn't cry. He didn't flee. Royal children are trained to endure, to maintain dignity under discomfort, to stand still when every instinct tells them to run. Louis merely nodded, stepped back, folded his hands, and let his face remain neutral. To the room, it was a minor incident, a fleeting moment of amusement.
Prince Louis is stealing the show at Trooping the Color once again.
But inside him, something ignited. That night, long after the castle had quieted, he replayed the encounter endlessly, tasting the sting of mockery and the weight of helplessness. And alongside the hurt, something else grew. Determination. Because what the adults didn't know, and what they would never guess, was that Louis already had a piano he truly understood. Not the polished showpiece of the drawing room, but a forgotten upright tucked away where curious eyes never ventured. It was patient, unjudging, and alive to his touch. And it would be there, waiting when Louis decided it was time to speak back. Not with words, but with the music of a 7-year-old prince who refused to be underestimated. The secret in the North Wing. The morning after his humiliation, Louis woke with a fire in his chest that felt alive, something insistent and urgent. While his siblings moved through their scheduled lessons and the household staff glided along familiar routines, Louis slipped away quietly, almost invisibly, to a forgotten part of Windsor Castle. The North Wing was a place the palace had long neglected. Corridors where dust collected on windowsills and portraits of long-dead relatives seemed to watch over empty rooms. He had discovered it months earlier during one of his restless explorations. Those moments when stillness became unbearable, when wandering was the only way to feel free. And there in a small, dimly lit room, tucked away behind a corridor that led nowhere, sat an upright piano that seemed to wait just for him. This piano was nothing like the grand instruments displayed in the palace's main halls, polished and gleaming, designed for show rather than substance. This one bore the scars of decades: chipped ivory keys, wood darkened with age, circular stains where teacups had rested long ago. Its pedals groaned and some keys resisted, rising reluctantly when pressed. And yet Louis loved it for its imperfections. It demanded patience rather than perfection. It asked nothing of him except honesty. When he played, it responded faithfully, without judgment or expectation. He had been teaching himself in secret for months, taking stolen hours in that room where nobody would think to look. He began simply exploring the feel of individual notes, discovering that each key could carry a feeling, a voice, a story. Then he moved to the palace library, a vast repository of music instructions, manuals, and sheet collections, some so old that the pages crumbled at the edges. It was there that he found a leather-bound volume that changed everything, a collection of piano pieces that had belonged to his grandmother, Princess Diana.
The princess. She shifted about looking rather reluctant before the persuasive professor led her off to the piano.
Her name inscribed elegantly inside the cover felt like a bridge across generations. Within the pages were pencil notations, markings of where to breathe, where to linger, where to let the music speak. Louis traced her handwriting with his fingers, imagining her own struggles with the same passages, her own triumphs and failures embedded in graphite. The connection was electric. He wasn't merely a boy hiding in a forgotten room. He was a grandson walking in the footsteps of a woman who had shocked the world with unexpected skill, a woman who had, decades earlier, revealed a talent that defied expectations. Perhaps she too had practiced in secret, driven by a quiet need to prove herself in a world that valued spectacle over substance. The days that followed his humiliation became a blur of disciplined practice. Louis's sessions grew longer, more methodical, each key pressed with intention, each passage repeated until his small hands could master it. The world still saw him as playful, restless, charming, but beneath the surface, something profound was changing. He was learning the discipline that could not be taught in lessons, discovering that mastery came not from raw talent, but from persistent effort, from failing countless times in private to succeed once in public. Every time his fingers cramped or a passage seemed impossible, he remembered the drawing room, the pianist's condescending smile, the polite laughter of adults who saw him as amusement rather than personhood. That memory became fuel. Children are better suited to waving than playing, the pianist had said, and Louis converted that mockery into resolve. He would not argue, he would not protest. He would demonstrate, undeniable and silent, that their assumptions were wrong. His parents began noticing subtle changes. Louis was calmer, more composed, less prone to restlessness, more present during formal occasions. One evening, William remarked on the difference. Catherine nodded in agreement. They couldn't have guessed that their youngest son was spending hours daily in a forgotten corner, teaching himself a language of sound and silence, preparing for the moment when he would no longer be dismissed, but recognized for the talent and determination that had always been his. The invitation that changed everything. Weeks passed in this way, with Louis dividing his life between the public child everyone expected him to be and the private musician he was becoming in stolen moments of solitude. Then King Charles mentioned during a family dinner that they had received an invitation to the International Harmony Gala, a prestigious annual event at the Royal Albert Hall where the classical music world gathered to celebrate excellence and tradition.
It's been almost 150 years since Queen Victoria opened Royal Albert Hall in honor of her beloved late husband, Prince Albert.
The guest list included critics whose reviews could make or destroy careers, patrons whose funding sustained orchestra and conservatories, composers whose work would outlive them, and performers whose names appeared on concert halls around the globe. Among those performers, King Charles mentioned almost casually, would be the renowned pianist who'd visited Windsor weeks earlier. Louis felt something shift inside his chest when he heard that name. The gala was still weeks away, enough time for the information to settle and for an idea to form in the quiet spaces of his mind. His parents had noticed his reaction to the news, though they interpreted it as nervousness about attending such a formal, lengthy event. Catherine knelt beside him and explained gently that it would be a very long evening, very formal, with music that might seem boring to someone his age. Could he manage sitting still for that long? Louis nodded and said he would be fine, but inside his heart was pounding with something that felt like fear and excitement and determination all tangled together. He wasn't planning to make a scene or draw unnecessary attention to himself, but he also knew, with a clarity unusual for a 7-year-old, that this gala represented an opportunity. Not for revenge exactly, but for something more important. A chance to reclaim the dignity that had been taken from him in that drawing room. A chance to prove that he was more than what people assumed when they looked at his age and his playful public persona. The weeks leading up to the gala became a focused countdown. Louis's practice sessions intensified further as he worked on the piece he'd chosen. Something challenging enough to demonstrate real skill, but not so difficult that he'd risk failure under pressure. He practiced until his small fingers ached, until he could play the piece without looking at his hands, until the notes flowed from muscle memory rather than conscious thought. He practiced imagining the weight of an audience's attention, the pressure of performing in front of people who'd spent their lives studying music, the challenge of staying calm when everything inside wanted to panic. He practiced bowing the way musicians did after performances, that gesture of respect and acknowledgement that said this moment was bigger than just him. He was preparing not just to play piano, but to step into a role nobody expected him to fill, to become someone the world had decided he couldn't be. When legends went silent, the Royal Albert Hall stood in the heart of London like a crown of brick and glass, its domed roof catching the evening light as the Wales family arrived for the International Harmony Gala. Louis sat quietly in the car, small hands folded in his lap, eyes tracing the city lights as they grew brighter. He gave nothing away, though inside a storm of nerves and anticipation churned. This wasn't a cheerful variety show or a charity event where smiles and applause were enough. This was serious. Every note mattered, every performer measured against centuries of tradition, and every mistake carried weight. The moment they stepped through the massive doors, the atmosphere pressed down on him. The gala was meant to celebrate music, yes, but also discipline, mastery, and perfection. The corridors were filled with critics whose words could shape careers, patrons whose donations sustained institutions, composers whose names would endure, and performers who had spent decades earning the right to stand here. Every gesture, every glance, every word carried significance. There was no room for improvisation. Louis walked between his parents, formally dressed, moving with the posture he had been taught. He seemed impossibly small amidst the towering figures in dark suits. Catherine watched him carefully, remembering the embarrassment he had faced weeks earlier and the way rooms like this could overwhelm a child. William kept a protective hand on Louis's shoulder, guiding him through the crowd, nodding politely to acquaintances, all while keeping his youngest son within reach. The pianist was already in position near the center of the hall, surrounded by admirers and fellow musicians hanging on his every word. He radiated confidence, a living standard of excellence. His approval could open doors. His criticism could close them for years. When his eyes landed on Louis, there was a flicker of recognition, a brief pause as memory connected past to present. He remembered the boy from Windsor, the joke he had made, the laughter it had drawn.
Prince Louis steals the show again, and this time it involves teasing his mom, Kate Middleton. But the most memorable moment, when Louis held a hand up to his nose and stuck his tongue out at Kate.
To the pianist, it had been insignificant, a fleeting amusement, quickly forgotten. Children forgot easily, he assumed. They lacked the capacity to hold grudges or ambition. As guests were ushered to their seats, the mood shifted. Programs were handed out, conversations softened, and anticipation thickened into an almost physical weight. Louis sat between his parents, feet dangling, hands resting carefully in his lap. His face appeared calm, but his chest tightened with every heartbeat. Behind the stage, the pianist prepared himself, reviewing passages in his mind, visualizing flawless execution, anticipating applause. And yet, something felt off, a tension he could not identify. The formal introductions concluded, the gala's mission outlined with practiced reverence, and then the pianist took the stage. Applause, measured and respectful, followed him as he approached the grand piano. Silence fell. This was his moment to demonstrate why he was revered, why halls filled at his name. But early in the performance, a subtle mistake appeared. Not enough for casual listeners to notice, but enough for professionals to detect, enough to disturb the flow. His shoulders tensed, his concentration tightened, and the music lost its effortless grace. Louis listened, his child's intuition in sensing tension, hearing hesitation where there should have been fluidity. The performance remained impressive, but the aura of untouchable mastery wavered. When the piece concluded, applause came, polite, supportive, restrained. The pianist's jaw tightened briefly, frustration masked by decorum. Then, in a half-joke, half-serious gesture, he suggested that a young royal might like to sit closer to the piano, experience it firsthand. The room reacted before anyone could think, before Catherine could protest, before William could intervene. A staff member gently guided Louis toward the aisle, unknowingly setting the stage for a moment that no one in the hall would ever forget. When history was made, Louis stood and walked toward the stage, his heart pounding so hard it seemed to shake his small frame. Every step felt impossibly long, every eye in the room boring into him with a weight he could almost feel physically. He reached the edge of the stage and paused, aware only that he'd been thrust into a spotlight he hadn't asked for, placed there by someone who assumed he would fail quietly and prove whatever point needed proving. The pianist looked down at him, seeing a small boy who seemed out of place in a world of serious artistry, expecting this moment to end quickly so the professionals could resume. But Louis didn't wait. Something crystallized inside him in that instant. All the secret hours of practice, the lessons learned from his grandmother's sheet music, the quiet determination that had been building since that afternoon in Windsor. Step by step, he moved with purpose toward the piano, gleaming under the stage lights. A staff member hesitated, unsure of protocol. Catherine remained seated, frozen by her son's composure. William leaned forward, suddenly aware that something unplanned was unfolding. He reached the bench, paused, and adjusted it with care, the soft scraping echoing through the silent hall. He settled onto the seat, feet dangling just as they did in the secret room where he'd practiced alone. The pianist expected hesitation, a child's nervous fumbling. Instead, he straightened slightly, a flicker of surprise crossing his face before he could hide it. He didn't rush. He let his hands hover above the ivory, inhaling deeply, centering himself exactly as he had done countless times in private. Then he began. The first note emerged soft but pure, carrying through the hall with clarity that made heads lift, programs lower, and attention sharpen. A second note followed, then a third, forming a melody deliberate and precise, shaped by hours of patient practice. This was no child's play. This was musicianship born of discipline, passion, and purpose. The audience collectively held its breath. Louis played with control, allowing each note to complete its journey before introducing the next. He listened to the piano, responded to its voice, and let it carry the message he had prepared for himself alone. The pianist felt certainty crack, confusion rise, disbelief spreading. This wasn't beginner's luck. It was mastery born from relentless dedication. Catherine felt tears rise, seeing the quiet intensity her son had summoned. William's mind raced, calculating the hours Louis must have devoted, the effort required to accomplish this in secret. The hall remained suspended, unsure how to respond, aware they were witnessing something rare. As the final notes faded, Louis rested his hands briefly on the keys, then lowered them to his lap. He slid off the bench and stood beside the piano, the profound silence around him threatening panic. He bowed slowly, following the instinct drilled into every royal child. Acknowledged the audience. The silence held, stretched, until it finally broke into applause. Not casual or polite, but measured, deliberate, honoring someone who had exceeded all expectations. The pianist remained still, a mixture of emotions uncontainable. Then quietly, words that no one anticipated. I was wrong. Simple. Honest recognition of a truth he could not deny. The boy he had dismissed had demonstrated more musicianship in one performance than many adults could claim in a lifetime. Louis didn't respond verbally. He stood, breath steady, mind spinning with relief and exhaustion. Catherine crossed quickly, kneeling to embrace him, while William's hand rested on his shoulder, proud without needing words. The gala continued, but everything had changed. Conversations shifted from technical critique to discovery, from maintaining protocol to recognizing talent wherever it appeared. That night, the Royal Albert Hall witnessed more than a performance. It witnessed a lesson in humility, in perception, and in the quiet power of a child who refused to be underestimated. That night at the Royal Albert Hall, the music was only the surface. Beneath it was a lesson about power, perception, and the danger of underestimating those we think we know. Prince Louis didn't just play notes, he challenged assumptions, rewrote expectations, and reminded the world that even the smallest, youngest voice can carry authority when backed by preparation and resolve. And yet, as the final chord faded and the audience rose in the stunned silence, one question lingered in the air, heavier than any applause. If a 7-year-old could teach the masters a lesson in humility, what other truths are quietly waiting, just out of sight, in the hands of those we've dismissed too soon? And sometimes, just sometimes, a prince can remind an entire world that we should all be more careful about who we underestimate.